All right. How's everybody doing? Let me make sure all my settings are correct before we get into it here. And that's why we check right there, is because my mic isn't right again. So hold on just a second. There we go. All right. How's everybody doing today? Hopefully good. We got a lot of news to cover. We got a lot to get into. So let's just go ahead and start. I'm going to bring up the map and we will go over that here. Let's see. All right. So we have quite a bit of movement. I'm going to leave Avdeevka for last right now. Just going to talk about some other areas. We had a pretty wide expansion around Pobyeta for the Russians. They are really trying to capture this because this would open up the road to Konstantinivka and would aid them. Hey, stop. Sorry, dogs. Would aid them in reaching Konstantinivka after they have also captured Novomihailovka. Attacking this from two different sides would be very beneficial for the Russians, but they have to get around this fortification here in Pobyeta, which you can't really see on the map, but this whole area is a massive fortification right outside of Marinka. And the Russians have, I think the Russians have decided that they're going to travel through these fields, through these tree lines, and end up flanking Pabieta from the south, cutting off the supply from here, and then eventually capturing this. And look, this is the problem, right? If the Ukrainians lose Pabieta, look at all of this space that can be exploited. It exposes the flanks of these villages here. The supply village here is now a direct line. I mean, it's through open field, so I'm not saying that the Russians can just walk right through there, but there's not fortifications in this area. There's no way to keep this area supplied. So the Russians should be able to move through this with some sort of pace. And this is something that the Ukrainians really want to avoid. So they're trying to hold this fortification. As soon as it falls, the Russians will have a jumping off point for operations in this area, as well as operations towards Konstantinivka and these settlements down here. This is vital for this region. And if this falls, you're going to see this entire southern flank get put in pretty serious jeopardy very quickly. Same goes for this area. If the Russians are able to move along this road and meet the 0532 highway, Ugledar becomes a very exposed fortification. So you can see the plan. You can see the plans in action. You can see the deliberate movements where the Russians want to go. And there's just some areas that are just very, very difficult to get through, and this is one of them. So the Russians are making progress here. That's very significant for the southern flank here. I wanted to talk about Ianiski a little bit. We have some updates. These are unconfirmed, so I actually will map them right now. We have some updates that the Russians have moved onto this high ground fortification right here, and potentially, and this map is not 100%. I don't know what the exact fortification layout is, but something like this. And then we have early reports that the Russians have actually entered. I'm going to put it in purple right now because it's not confirmed. We have reports that the Russians have entered Ivanivsky from this side. Again, this advance up here, capturing this fortification on this high ground that overlooks Ivanivsky, means that this town's days are numbered. I believe that the Russians now, since Klishchivka is being such a difficult thorn, the Ukrainians are able to keep it supplied over the Seversky Donetsk canal right here. Or sorry, the I don't think it's Severodonetsk canal, but whatever. This canal right here that runs in front of Chasiv Yar, they're able to keep this bridgehead supplied, and I just don't know how much longer they can do that. I would have thought that this area would have been one of the quicker ones to fall, but the northern flank seems to be focused on a lot more. And then if the Russians can get across this road and put pressure on this northern pocket of this salient, all of this will end up collapsing. So you can, once again, you can see what the Russian plan is, force the Ukrainians out of Ivanivsky, and then this just becomes very, very difficult to hold altogether. So that's what the Russians are doing around Bakhmut. We haven't had any updates in Bilohorivka. But this front is having some difficulties. It's a lot of the manpower and ammunition is being supplied to other areas of the front. So don't expect, I mean, you might expect some movement in this area, but the Russians aren't pushing here particularly strong. I believe that the Seversk salient will come after Avdeevka falls. And then up to the north here, we still don't have a ton of news. The Russians are still operating in this region, but again, the primary focus right now is Avdeevka. So let's move down there, and we can talk about the horrible situation unfolding for the AFU down here. So to start off, we had a Russian advance. If you guys remember, I talked about the Russians had reached the gas station. They had not yet cut this intersection right here. This is right, like, let's see, there's that thing. So like right here I think this is the entrance sign into Avdeevka that that Zelensky stood in front of. So this is that area. This is the entrance into Avdeevka. This is the main supply route. This restaurant right here has been captured. This Breveno restaurant. It was a fortification. It was a strong point defending this road. It was the last strong point. And actually, I'm going to update this because you can't really even see it, but there's a trench right here. So even if you're just looking at the old map of the far backside of Avdiivka, you can see that there are entrenchments like everywhere. This was a fortress city. Like there is nothing else like this on the front besides maybe New York and Toretsk right here, right? This was the spot, and this is why they defended it so staunchly. Is because the whole area is just a fortification. So really, the Russian line should be out here, but I'm just going to keep it conservative right now and keep it further back. But this is where, 2 months ago, Zelensky came in, and I had told you guys, I said, this is the kiss of death. This is what leaders do right before an area is about to fall. They go in, they bolster morale. They make sure their generals or military leadership in the region are in check. They make sure they're doing what they want them to do. And it's like the only way I can explain it is like Zelensky came down and put his nuts on the table and was like, "Deal with it. This is what we're doing. This is what he did in Severodonetsk. This is what he did in Bakhmut. This is what he did in Avdiivka. He just did it in Robotny in the south. So again, expect that area to fall. I'm pretty sure they have intelligence that the Russians are about to make a push towards Orikhiv out there. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. Just fixing my map a little bit here. But yeah, so this was a massive area that was not supposed to fall. Like the Ukrainians have the shortest supply line here. They should have been able to keep this area. They have the coke plant that they can feed out of, but the Russian pressure is just too great, and the Ukrainian garrison is just too weak in this region to hold back this Russian push. So they captured this set of fortifications here, which is right up against the coke plant. Not a very good ordeal. They raised a flag, which I will show you. They raised it on these yellow pipes right here that go over the road to show you how much of an industrial town this is. They literally have, it's like piping that comes all the way up to the coke plant, and it goes all the way down this road. That goes over the road, and that's where you're going to see the flag. So, and then on top of that, the Russians have crossed over this highway because on the backside, there's not a lot of fortifications, right? In these backfields, there's not a lot down here. This is the front, right? This is the front down here. This ended up becoming the front eventually, but this was never supposed to be the front line, right? This is in the rear of the fortification. So there's not as much defending here. The Russians have pushed out into these tree lines, expanded their zone of control. There's no buildings. There's no real like roads. Like I'm sure, yeah, if you look at these roads, they look like roads on the map, but then if you zoom in and look at them, you can see that this is horrible. I mean, think about how muddy and awful this is right now. This is not a paved road. This is a dirt road on the side of a field, basically. If any of you have ever lived in Kansas for any extended period of time or anywhere where they do agriculture, Texas, the Midwest, or in Europe, I'm not sure exactly where, but these roads are not to be trusted when the weather's bad. They're great when it's dry, but when it's wet like it is right now and it's muddy, so keeping this area is going to be extremely difficult, keeping it supplied and well manned, especially because there's basically an evacuation happening already. So they have like guard troops here, but nothing. But I don't believe that much is happening in terms of counterattacks. There were rumors that the Ukrainians were going to try some I called it a deblocking operation because what I wanted them to do, what I thought they should do, is send in some reserves, open up, because this was getting very, very bad. Open this up. I was expecting an attack up from the north, but not a successful attack, a diversionary attack to pull Russian resources that are focused in the city to outside of the city. And then after that had happened, going in and evacuating all of the men from this region. So that's what I meant by deblocking, just so everybody's aware. I think some people were under the impression that the Ukrainians were going to try to salvage the city somehow, which is literally just impossible with the current situation. The city's destroyed anyway. It's trying to win it back would be a ridiculous waste of manpower and resources that the Ukrainians don't possess right now. But some people had this idea that there might be some massive attack down through this northern flank, cutting all of this off, which, I mean, I'm sure the Ukrainians would have loved, but it's just not really a possibility. But we really haven't seen any significant counterattacks. The third Azov brigade that was brought in took some heavy attrition in the rear here, and then got sent in and just got ground up. From eyewitness reports and anecdotal statements coming out from the guys that were in this brigade, the situation is horrible. I've also seen anecdotal, obviously could be propaganda. You got to be careful with all of this stuff. Videos of Ukrainians that are stuck in the city, probably in the 9th district, that are wounded. I saw one video with a guy saying that he was with 6 guys. He was talking to his girlfriend on the phone and she was screen recording it, that they are stuck in the city somewhere in a basement, wounded, can't be medically evac'd. They can't walk out on their own. So they're just trapped, basically waiting for the Russians. I believe that is probably the case with a lot of the wounded in the city. I believe that there are a lot of wounded in the city. And it's, I mean, look at how bad this situation is. This has probably got progressively worse. I would not be surprised if this road has been cut. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if the entirety of the town was just gray zone. No Ukrainian resistance. Or maybe some Ukrainian resistance, but nothing extremely organized. Anybody who can retreat has retreated, as we can see down here in the south. The Zenith fortification and the Chebu fortification right here were both captured. The Ukrainians either got out or I really don't know how many Ukrainians were holding these positions. Probably some got out, some got left, whatever. We'll figure that out maybe in the coming days if we get some reports, but that's been captured, which is significant, not because, I mean, even if the guys like escaped out for the Russian army, it doesn't matter. That they probably didn't want to fight them tooth and nail in here. These fortifications are 10-year fortifications. This right here, what has happened in this southern flank of Avdeevka now is more important than anything that happened up on this northern flank. I mean, springing forward in the future, this northern flank is going to be very productive, moving down this railroad and stuff like that. But these fortifications are what holds up a good chunk of the Russian military concentration, right? You have to spend the most bombs on this area. You send the most men in and to die in assaults in this area. So these fortifications going away is just like a pressure, like an overpressure release. Like the Russians don't have to be stuck here anymore. Now they can be moved and exploit the rest of this territory that's now open to being captured. So I think we're going to see a quick and steady collapse of Avdeevka. I mean, just today we had this gain, and this filtration plant was abandoned. So I think that the Ukrainians are in a full retreat. They're getting out of the city any way they can. Again, Bakhmut 2.0, you're just going to have too many Ukrainian casualties in this area as they're retreating. And we'll get some cope about how the town didn't matter or whatever. I mean, you know how it goes. All right, let's see. We got a question here. We got 2 questions. All right. Okay, so that's actually what I have for you for the map today. So I'll answer these questions and talk about some other stuff now as well. All right. I think the nukes in space is based on preparations or testing that the U.S. intel has seen. We're seeing all of the former nuclear treaties going to trash, missile testing, etc. Yeah, no, I agree. And then there's a part 2 to this question as well. Part 2, I think we're seeing the same for the Nukes in Space Treaty. I think it will happen with Belarus and the lead up. And the lead up and hysteria before nukes were actually placed there. Always a great job. Well, thank you so much for that. Yes, I tend to agree. I think that the Russians are now exploring that realm potentially. I'm sure both sides have been exploring that realm for decades. I mean, this is not something new. That's what Star Wars was, right? It wasn't a weapon in space, but a way to destroy Russian ICBMs from space, which is still the weaponization of space. You don't want nukes in space. That's a whole different thing. But, weaponizing space is not new. The U.S. has literally the Space Force. So this is something that is what you just said right here is very, very possible. And I would not doubt that the Russians are considering that. I mean, what's the best way to gain parity, military parity against the United States? It would be putting something in space that could fully destroy the U.S.'s satellite arrays, right? Military satellites, Starlink, destroying anything in space via a nuclear blast, a debris field, kinetic kill vehicles, whatever you're talking about, would be a huge benefit to the Russians, to the Chinese, to anybody, right? So I fully expect that this is exactly what's happening, and I think it's not only a slippery slope for both sides, but I think it's a slippery slope that everybody's really, really excited to go down. They don't understand the dangers; they just see the opportunity, and that whole fear of catastrophic global thermal nuclear war seems to have completely evaporated. The millennials that are growing up now are becoming the major working and voting population. They didn't live under that nuclear umbrella like the boomers did. The boomers had this thing growing up where it was at any time they could be wiped off the face of the earth, right? That's not so much how my generation thinks. That's not so much how millennials think. So I think that that's really going away, and you're starting to see it being expressed in the leadership and stuff like that. So I'm going to take us over to my Twitter to show you guys some of the stuff that happened today. So here's that flag that I mentioned. You can see it is flying. This is that yellow pipe. You can see it is raised right here over the road. You can see the shadow of it. Here, I'll pause it right. That's not very good. So you can see the shadow right here of that raised yellow pipe that goes over the road. Obviously, this place looks absolutely bombed out. It's horrible looking. The satellite pictures make it look way nicer. But this is the area where Zelensky went, and I'll show you that post from Zelensky right here.
Авдіївка, наші позиції, наші хлопці. Україна тут захищає свої, захищає увесь наш народ, як і на цілі.
But then right back here, you can see there's that yellow piping that it goes over the road. This is where the Russian flag is now hanging, where this Ukrainian flag was hanging, and that this is where Zelensky was. So the Russians are where Zelensky's at.
Донеччина, Харківщина, Запоріжжя, Херсонщина,
Lviv, though, ain't it? All right. And now I was going to show you. Oh yeah. So this is the Russian flag in that southern area, right? Sorry for the poor footage, or the poor picture. It's just from drone footage. But here's a Russian flag. The Russian tricolor right here. So this is in the zenith, which is down in the south here. So definitely two visual confirmations. And then last night, the Ukrainians struck a shopping area, obviously. I mean, civilian vehicles outside in Belgorod, killed a bunch of people with multiple strikes with Serbian G2000 122 millimeter Grad missiles. Here's some of the ones that were intercepted, I believe. But also they could have been hit the ground. I just think that there would be more damage to these if they explode, if they were a part of the actual explosion. But these have extended range, and allowed for this war crime to happen. So classic Ukraine war crimes, right? They don't have enough ammo to defend Avdeevka. They can't keep the Russians away. But what are they doing? Firing multiple launch rocket systems into Belgorod to get it to win the war or something, whatever they want to pretend. That's for. And then we had this piece of news. So it is reported that Admiral Viktor Sokolov has been removed from his position as commander of the Black Sea Fleet, which he held since September 14th, 2022. Allegedly, Vice Admiral Sergei Mykolaievich Pinchuk has been appointed as the new commander. So I think that this is a good idea. This seems like one of the issues right now that the Russian military is facing. This sort of like old head boomer in a position that they should not be in because they were put in that position over years and years of peacetime, right? The 1990s, the 2000s, like that's when this guy developed his officer career, and he wasn't doing anything. So he's not particularly any Russian military leadership going into the Ukraine war was not experienced or particularly experienced. I mean, some of them might have had some training in Afghanistan in the 80s, which is a long time ago, some in Chechnya and some in Syria, perhaps, but really nothing that would constitute experience that could relate to what is happening in Ukraine. So I believe that this is good. Anytime leadership is changing when you're winning war is a good thing. And I hope that the change brings some fresh air to the Black Sea Fleet thinking and allows these attacks from Ukraine to stop, because it doesn't make any sense. Why are you losing ships to surface drones that can be stopped in a multitude of ways? So hopefully something good comes out of this. I think that this is a good change, but we'll see. The new guy could just be double incompetent. So, and then I just wanted to show you guys the video of Avdeevka. Just basically endless glide bombs dropping on the city, and it is really beginning to look like Russia has some what we would call as some form of air superiority over Ukraine. They're now executing sorties without risk, basically, to themselves. Gliding munitions allow it. So the Russian Air Force is now delivering serious planes to areas where they weren't able to deliver the city, and it's really becoming another tool for the Russians. Over the past couple of days, we've seen an average of hundreds of glide bombs being used, especially as Avdeevka gets more and more concentrated. So, all right, here we go. Most subreddits are coping hard. Yes, they are. They do that. They're coping bad. Oh, I'm sorry about the music. I didn't know that the music was super loud. Let me know if you get let me know if it goes back to normal. I didn't know that the music was that loud. It did not sound that loud on my PC. All right. What is that? Twitter's crazy sometimes. If you guys have questions, go ahead and get the questions in right now. That's pretty much all I had to talk about in terms of news. Tomorrow's live stream is going to be excellent. Tomorrow's live stream, there's going to be, I think that we're about to see pretty much a full collapse in Avdeevka. I think most of the city of Avdeevka now is in the gray zone. Oh, you guys could barely hear me over the music. All I was saying was that glide bombs have now become a major facet, and it looks like Russia has air superiority over certain parts of Ukraine, where they get to, they get to really do some significant damage to. They have the air superiority to do significant damage to Ukrainian positions now. They aren't at risk of being shot down and glide bombs are becoming plentiful. I think in Avdeevka almost daily there's 50 to 100 glide bombs being used right now, which is obviously a concentration, but that just means that the Russians have basically endless precision guided munitions to be dropping wherever they want. Thoughts on if Ukraine tries to keep the coke plant? I don't see why they wouldn't. Here, I'll take you back over to the map just so I can show you guys. Oh, and then I might talk about actually what might come after this. So here you have Avdeevka, right? This is the part that's really at risk. But the coke plant is also like, I mean, it's on the front line. I bet the gray zone extends into the coke plant now. I never bet against the Ukrainians holding every position to the bitter end. That's a bad bet. That's not the bet you want to take. But I do think that with the amount of destruction that's already happened to this plant, I'm pretty sure the line's going to level out somewhere out over here, because there's just really not a ton of reason to hold anything that's still within this salient. Because if let's just say, I'm just going to extend this gray zone so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about here. Let's just say that this happened, right? It's kind of like this, whatever. There's too many dots, but oh well, I'll fix this later. So let's just say it's all gray zone like this. What is the point of holding this now? Is the only point of holding this would be to prevent the Russians from getting behind this, but really there's not much. There's one road in and out. It's going to be pressured incredibly hard. There's nothing distracting from the coke plant now. The Russians are on all sides of the coke plant. They're already over here. They're going to be behind the coke plant in no time. So I just really don't think that there's much option to hold it. And the Ukrainians should retreat. Will they? Probably not. We'll probably see another fucking 30 weeks of fighting around this coke plant, just because that's how the Ukrainians like to do things. So here we go. Thoughts on World War III potential. Also, what do you think about other YouTube channels lying about the situation on the ground? I don't watch many other YouTube channels. Sometimes I'll catch an episode of the Duran if they have somebody on, or if there's a certain topic that I'm really interested in. I listen to the Duran sometimes for some of their stuff outside of Ukraine. For me, when you do this stuff all day and you listen to other people talk, it's really, really difficult, especially when people are kind of stupid. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I'm stupid regularly. So, I mean, go ahead, go off on me. I don't care. But there are definitely people that are just like, when you hear them talk about Ukraine, that they don't know, at least they don't know as much as I do, because I sit here and watch it all day. This is like all I do is I'm making maps and I'm posting combat footage, and every single little event that happens crosses my table. I see it all. So I have this really good idea, I guess, of what's going on. Obviously, my bias comes in, interferes. I make things bigger than they are, smaller than they should be, whatever, all that cope or exaggeration or anything like that. But when you know everything that's going on and you hear somebody say something that's wrong, I just like it. My brain shuts down. Like I'll be listening to even like Joe Rogan or something. I'm listening to a Joe Rogan podcast and they start talking about Ukraine, and I'm like, I gotta turn this shit off. This is what I do all day. It's what I listen to all day, and now I'm sitting here listening to these guys butcher it, and it's very difficult. And that doesn't mean like pro-Russian or pro-Ukrainian. I just like realism, and there's a lot of delusion. And a lot of the pro-Ukrainian YouTubers are the most delusional human beings I've ever had the unfortunate pleasure of listening to. I'm just going to put this back. Okay. And then what was the first part of your question? Thoughts on World War III potential. As far as in all of human history, we are probably at one of the closest points to World War III that humans, I mean, to the end of human civilization that we've ever been. The Cuban Missile Crisis was like, it seemed, it was very close. The Cuban Missile Crisis, I mean, if you watch, 8 Days in October or 13 Days of October or something like that, 7 Days of October, I can't remember, that you get a real insight as to how close we were to war. But that was like, it seemed more stable because it was two militaries directly clashing, the US and Russia, right? Which is obviously dangerous, but also there's that feeling in the air where nobody really wants to actually go to war. Like both sides obviously didn't want to fight. That's why they didn't end up fighting. That's why the Russians, backed off of the blockade and everything, and so on. But now it's just chaos. It's chaos everywhere. That's how it seems to me. You have the Russians fighting against a U.S. proxy in Ukraine. You have the Americans fighting a Russia, China, Iranian sort of alliance, particularly Iran, obviously, in the Middle East. You have the U.S. preparing for China. And it's just like hotspots everywhere. Hotspots, and the people in charge do not seem like leadership. Like Kennedy and those people, Kennedy had generals telling him to bomb Cuba, like start taking out Russian missile sites. And he took a step back and said, is that really what we want to do? Is that what I'm going to do? And he decided to not do that, right? Could it have been a mistake? It very well could have been. It didn't end up being a mistake. But I don't feel like we have that leadership anymore. We have people that are looking out for their own self-interests and own well-being, and not actually doing their job. So it feels like we could accidentally step into World War III so much easier than previous times in human history. Obviously, it would be like what it feels like right now is those stories about, NORAD or the Russian version of NORAD getting false alarms about nuclear missile launches. And instead of the guys deciding to not turn the key, they turn the key. That's what it feels like right now. It feels like at any time, any sort of situation like that could arise. Just that level of chaos. Have we reached the point in Avdeevka where it's strategically inconsequential yet? Yeah, no. I'm pretty sure 250 million Russians have died in meat assaults trying to take this city. So really, at the end of the day, if you look at it, like a 900-to-1 kill death ratio makes this city like so worth it for Ukraine. PogChamp. Let's go. Calibrated. Do we have any idea about the casualties in Avdeevka? I know the exact number are unknown, but wondered if we get some estimate ranges. Honestly, dude, we have no idea how many Ukrainian units have been sent in. I don't know what time period you're talking about either. If you're talking about since like October when this offensive started, I would say in this area, you probably have Ukrainian casualties, definitely above 10,000, probably above 20,000 total casualties. And the Russians are probably similar. I believe on this front, like wounded and killed in action. The defenders definitely have an advantage here. The Russians are pushing hard, but the Russians also have an artillery and aviation advantage. So I believe that the kill death ratio, I guess you would call it, not like a video game, but reality, would be probably even in this area. Other areas of the front, it is not even. And since this whole salient has developed, it definitely has not been even. The Russians are taking losses, but this is just a mess now. So, I mean, now it's getting to the point. It's like Bakhmut. Like Bakhmut was favorable for the Ukrainians for a long time, and then Soledar fell, and then the flanks fell, and then it stopped becoming viable, right? And then it just became a meat grinder. That's something that I think a lot of pro-Russians don't understand either, is that at the start of these battles, usually it's much more costly for the Russians just because you're crossing the prepared kill zones, you're, walking into fortifications, you're exposed, the enemy isn't. But once the Russians are behind the lines, like back over here, once they're back behind that this is just not, it's not a defensive position anymore. Now you're just sitting in a trench with Russians all around you, right? So it's a little bit different. Let's see. Let's see. Kramatorsk, Avdeevka, Slavyansk, Konstantinivka is a giant line of buildings. Will it be easier to storm them as Russia performs better inside cities, unlike the fields? I don't know. I don't know how they're going to go about it. You know, I haven't looked at the overall logistic situation. They could try to surround it from this side, but I would not be particularly worried about this anytime soon. I mean, you're going to need to have a significant Ukrainian military collapse or withdrawal before we're talking about Kramatorsk, Slavyansk, Druzhkivka, and Konstantinivka. Even like Chasiv Yar is probably a good like a good amount of time away. You got to remember the Russians probably need to capture most of this before they can move into Slavyansk and Kramatorsk. But what I do think you guys are going to start to see is you're going to start to see this snowball where the Russians just start moving quicker. They start exposing more, and then it just snowballs and snowballs and snowballs and snowballs. That's what I think we're beginning to see with Avdeevka, and we'll see it continue out of Avdeevka in other areas of the front, because the manpower and ammunition situation haven't improved, right? Nothing's changed. And the only thing that's happening is more attrition, right? So there's no real opportunities to stabilize, is basically what I'm saying. All right, here we go. What if the Biden admin sends Zelensky the N-word pass? How do you think that will affect the situation? Well, pretty sure this is I have no proof of this. I'm pretty sure they use it without the pass. They've been using it. I don't know if you've met these guys, but I don't think that they really require the pass so much. But if they get the pass, their power, it's like the final stone in the Infinity Gauntlet. They'll have their Gamars, they'll have their Storm Shadows, they'll have, let me think, what else? The Ghost of Kiev. They'll have their Grand General Sersky, and then the last one is the N-word pass. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. That is the best question I've had today. Thank you. Scott looks like, what does it say? Scott looks like a punker back in the day. I bet he wears Doc Martens paratroop boots. No, you guys, I'm like one of those like not so fashionable human beings. I mean, not saying Doc Martens or paratrooper boots are fashionable, but I'm like a big dude too, so it's like really hard to find clothes, and I hate shopping, so I don't do it. And where I live too, everybody in the state that I live is like 5'9" and Mexican, so there's not, I mean, finding jeans around here is literally impossible. I have to order them off of the internet and stuff. But I wear size 14 black Vans. I buy 3 pairs at a time. And I have one pair that is like my nice dress pair that I keep very clean. I have one pair that I don't wear until the other ones wear out. And then I have my one work pair that I wear. I just wear them to work. I wear them around. Those are my favorite shoes. I love them. And then I have running shoes and stuff. Like I have volleyball shoes. So. Bro, almost said it. I see you have red, yellow, purple, and white in the Avdeevka area. What do the individual colors mean? All right, this is a good question. So the green is what I think you mean by the yellow. The green is confirmed Russian gains. So these are Russian gains. Usually I update it within 7 to 10 days. I'll turn green to red. So green is, can I add a description to this? I should add a description. I have a legend, but green is confirmed Russian gains through geolocation. So we have geolocations here. We don't have geolocations here, but we have so many reports from so many different sources, Ukrainian and Russian, that I believe that it's true. So that's what's going on there. We have geolocation up here. So the green is confirmed Russian advances via geolocation. Purple is unconfirmed Russian advances. So more like rumors or reports, but significant enough that I believe them to be true. These are subject to change. The zone is not necessarily guaranteed, but the gains there is some Russian activity in this area that would qualify me putting this on the map. White is gray zone. And I don't have it all over the map, so you're not going to see it everywhere. The reason I have it up here is because I think it's specific. It was specifically important to the supply lines and to give people a visualization of what the situation in the city actually looks like, instead of just like if I got rid of the gray zones, like that gives you a false impression that maybe the Ukrainians have positions here. The Ukrainians are still holding the line here, when really it looks more like this. And the salient is much more compressed. The supply line is much more pressured and stuff like that. And then I don't think there were any other colors. The red dots are Russian geolocations. So like here, I have the Russian flag that was placed on the yellow pipe. There's the video right there. There's the geolocation. I have the geolocation right there. And then the source where I got it off of Telegram. So, or the source of who did the geolocation. So that's what that means. And then do I have any other colors on the map? I don't think so. I think I have one in my presentation. Oh, and then red is confirmed. I mean, like controlled, like the Russians are not, this is not a contested area. This is not new gains. This is what the Russians control. I have also a bunch of old geolocations for RU. I move them down after a while. Also have a bunch of Ukrainian geolocations that are old. And then I have my 4 presentation, which is this is just a random color. This was something I had in here to represent what I believed the situation would be like in the coming days and weeks. And as you can tell, it's kind of coming to fruition already, right? I expected a Ukrainian withdrawal much earlier because there's no point in holding the city anymore. But, you know, Ukrainians are going to be Ukrainians. So let's see. Did I miss anybody's questions? Question. Scott, are vans like Crocs for people who actually have class? No, vans are like, let me think. It's like, I have like different pairs of like sweatpants. That's what I think of my shoes as, you know, I have my new ones that are really nice. I wear those to like the gym or out and about. They're like sweatpants that you're not ashamed of. And then my work pants are like, or my work shoes are like sweatpants that you wear at home because, you know, they have like an oil stain on the leg or something and you're just embarrassed. You don't want to wear them out anymore. That's more of the situation for me. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, thank you for that super sticker, man. I really appreciate it. That's awesome. Tyler Petrie. Thank you. Sorry if I mess up your guys' names too. I'm just an idiot. So let's see. Get your questions in, everybody. Get your questions in. Thank you, man. Thank you for showing up. Just you guys being here is so awesome. We have a pretty good stream going today too. I really appreciate everybody being here. If you guys have some questions, get them in quick. Get them in quick. Let's see. Scott, when are you and Brian Belletic going to do another episode? You know what? That's a good question. You guys should go bug him about it because I would love to do an episode with him. I haven't been bothering him about it because he was doing a lot of work for his page, doing a lot of stuff. But if you guys want it, if you guys want to see it, go at him and bug him about it, please. I talk to him daily. So, I mean, I could ask him at any time. And if you guys really want him to come on, I can try to work something out. But yeah, go bug him. I think it'd be funny if you bugged him too. Let's see. Do you think Russia will make another move on Kiev? I think that Russia is willing to keep its entire keep its options entirely open, right? You know, there are rumors that there is some counterterrorism operation happening in this region. I think it would be a good idea just for the Russians to start building up troops in Belarus again. I just think that if they have the reserves that they can spare, the equipment that they can spare to make this look like a potential threat, that's what I would do right now. And I would get as many troops out of the east as I could possibly get to come up here and hold these positions, territorial defense brigades, everything, so I could really start exploiting territory down here. If the Russians do not have enough reserves, which I think do, then keeping the Ukrainians here in one position, fighting in bad salients, is always a good secondary. But yes, I believe that if the whole situation collapses, the Russians will have some plan to go in on helicopter, like the Hostomel situation, and try to gain control over the city. Not like directly, but like begin an operation to open up a path to capture the city. Because if like say like Zelensky runs away, the whole situation collapses. You do not want NATO moving in to this region, right? That's not what you want. So when that starts to happen, I would expect you to see a buildup in Belarus, a buildup in these regions, and then a quick across to capture as much of Ukraine as possible out to probably like Zhytomyr and this region. This is kind of what I believe the end of this conflict will look like, depending on what the West does. If the West interdicts, who knows? They might not feel like they can allow Ukraine to fall like that. But I believe that the Russians, at the end of the day, want something like this, right? And then all of this. And then Ukraine will just become, I don't even know if they'll keep all of this. They'll probably create a little Ukrainian state, and then it'll become like a little Belarusian state. And then, this becomes Poland, this becomes this, and this becomes that. I think you're about to see this whole country kind of just disappear. And not like in a bad way. It's not a good thing that the country is disappearing, but you make your decisions, right? You chose to fight. You continue to choose to fight even after there are options and off ramps. And eventually, your luck's going to run out. What kind of battle will the Battle of Ivanivsky be? That's an interesting question. I don't really know. I think it's going to be another one of these situations where the Russians will just have the advantageous positioning over the city, and the Ukrainians will do everything that they can to continue to hold it and hold it and hold it. And the Russians will just keep letting them feed supply in on this road under fire control, keep trying to keep it supplied through these fields out over here, trying to make something work. Because if you look at it, I mean, they can come down here, they can get off. This is not really, again, another road. A lot of these roads are like muddy and dirty, but they'll be able to keep this supplied. Is there any roads over here? That's another dirt road. These maps are deceiving. You look and it looks like there's like roads, but really they're not roads. They're just little dirt roads. So yeah, Ukraine is a pretty, like this is a road right here. Like these are your only roads. They're very sparse. It's very interesting. But I think it's just going to turn into another escapade for the Ukrainians. All right. Let's see. I've been wondering about that. Cersei for a long time. He said Russia does a terrible job he's Russian and does a terrible job as a general. That spells double agent to me. No, I don't think he's double agent. I just think he is a guy that through circumstance ended up in Ukraine instead of in Russia. And then he has a career there. So whatever you think about his leadership, I doubt he's a double agent or anything like that. I doubt he is. I'm sure his loyalties are to Zelensky, because why wouldn't they be? He's probably made him very wealthy. Those are not roads. They're muddy forest tracks. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they are. They're roads. That's what people talk about when they're talking about Avdeevka. They're like, oh, they still have the road to Severny. And I'm like, no, it's a muddy disaster. I showed you guys yesterday what it looked like. It was horrible. Yeah. says the Kremlin bot. That's right. All right, guys. I think that's where I'm going to leave it off today. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody getting in here and watching this. We had a great stream. Be here tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. I think we're going to have news all through the rest of the day and into tomorrow. And then this weekend, I'm going to try to do a late night stream on Saturday. So late night my time, which will probably be like 7 to 9 Eastern Standard Time. If you guys are able to watch that, tune in. We'll just be having probably a relaxed stream. I might have some guests on talking, just messing around. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. Be here tomorrow. Should be good. Take care and have a great day, everybody. You know how it is. Just be safe.